This is getting real, guys. The BRICS Alliance, that powerhouse coalition of 5 major emerging economies, has just received applications from a whopping 25 countries to join their ranks. They're talking about big players like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Argentina, and many more. And guess what, guys? These nations are oil rich, pumping out millions of barrels of precious oil and gas to the US and to Europe. But here's the kicker. They could demand payment in the BRICS currency instead of the almighty US dollar. Talk about shaking things up, right? Here, check this out.
The US dollar is facing a backlash. At the forefront of this is BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, Russia thinks that BRICS should do more, so it has floated the idea of a common currency. Reports say they're working on a proposal which is likely to be taken up in August. That's when the BRICS summit will be held in South Africa. How will this happen? Some of this is already happening, like the settlement of trade in national currencies. India has an agreement with Russia. It's called the rupee-ruble trade mechanism, but Russia has more expectations from India. It is banking on India for more support, and Russia has similar hopes from China, and it's not going to be easy. Will China, that wants the yuan to replace the US dollar, agree to a BRICS currency? And would India want economic integration with China, especially given the challenges at the border? These conflicting priorities are the biggest roadblocks before the BRICS today.
Now imagine a world where China and Russia trade exclusively using the BRICS currency. Now in that scenario, Russia would not need to bother with parking their trade proceeds in dollars anymore. Nope, they'd be using the BRIC. Yep, that's what they're calling it, to be able to purchase all of their imports. And I hate to say it, guys, but it looks like it's all about de-dollarization from here on out. Some sources are saying that the BRICS Alliance is even seriously considering Bitcoin as a potential alternative to the greenback, especially diversifying their economies away from the dominance of the USD. Plus, the blockchain technology behind Bitcoin promises a more efficient financial system, giving these emerging nations the chance to leapfrog the established powers. Now, this is all happening in a summit meeting in less than 2 months, folks. It's taken place against the backdrop of a rapidly changing global landscape. The traditional powers of the West are facing some serious challenges, and the BRICS countries are determined to reduce their reliance on the dollar. All I can say, guys, is you can bet your bottom dollar that the Western sanctions on Russia after the Ukraine invasion have only fueled their determination. And let's not forget about the debt ceiling crisis and rising interest rates in the United States, causing other nations to sweat about the dollar-denominated debt. The world is bracing for what happens if the leading economy defaults. And trust me, it's keeping everybody up at night. So folks, picture this. A future where the dollar's reign falters and all those greenbacks come flooding back home to roost. Social security and welfare checks hanging by a thread. Because seriously, when this happens, I wonder how long the social security and welfare checks will continue. Am I right? Like, what do you guys think? Tell me some of your thoughts about this in the comment section down below. It's all just a little bit terrifying, isn't it? I mean, just think about when all of those dollars come back home. In times like these, it is all about being prepared and making the most of life. None of us can change what's happened or what's to come, but we can adapt and find ways to thrive. Smart investors are already diversifying their portfolios, reducing their exposure to the dollar, and exploring alternative investment options. They're eyeing currencies of other countries, especially those expected to benefit from the rise of the BRICS currency. So stay tuned, guys. I got expert insights and strategies to help you prepare and possibly thrive in the fast-changing de-dollarization landscape. Now, let's go ahead and get started. So yeah, like I said, a whopping 30 countries are just ready to ditch the US dollar as a global reserve currency. The South African ambassador, Anil Sukla, he hinted that the alliance could expand this year, becoming Brics Plus. Could you imagine the impact that this is going to have on our economy, on our cash flow? Brace yourselves, guys, because we might just witness a seismic tilt in the global economic order. This could shift the balance from the West to the East and ushering in a new era of what they call a multipolar economy. In other words, anti-US. Just recently, the BRICS Alliance officially received applications from a surprising number of 25 countries eager to join the bloc. Now, we're talking about nations like Afghanistan, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, and many more. Now, what's fascinating is that among these applicants, we have oil-rich countries that export millions of barrels of precious oil and gas to the US and to Europe. So what happens when these countries start demanding payment in BRICS currency? Now, as you guys know, the BRICS Alliance is made up of 5 powerhouses right now. You got Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But with these new applicants, we're looking at a whopping total of 30 countries joining forces to challenge the supremacy of the US dollar. Their aim? to dethrone the US dollar from its global reserve currency status through BRICS entry. Now, if all of these countries start trading with the BRICS currency and sever their reliance on the US dollar, well, let's just say that the greenback won't be feeling too good and it won't be feeling too strong. The United States would find itself grappling for means to fund its deficit, and its economy would begin to crumble under the weight of it all. Forget about the Great Recession. This could be the greatest recession or depression in our lifetime, potentially leading to job cuts, economic turbulence in the long run, greater than we've ever seen. We saw it coming a lot of years ago. That's why you have a lot of Americans who have begun preparing and making themselves independent of the systems that we take for granted, especially figuring out how to live without real money. Now, I heard from one of these preppers recently, they converted to metals and have their Social Security and a pension for dollars, but they're saying that they can get by now without it if need be. They shifted their whole life to simple farming, building livestock, and manufacturing what they need right there, right where they live. They say it's really just a mindset. Power is sometimes missed, but making power isn't impossible either. Have you guys ever thought about doing anything like this, or is this just like too far off the grid? I'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section down below, because really, a BRICS currency could definitely shake the US dollar's dominance. So let's go ahead and break it down for a second here. So imagine a group of up-and-coming nations joining forces to create their own currency. Now, this currency could potentially outweigh not just the United States, but even the combined power of other major currencies and economies. Now, of course, countries wanting to break free from the US dollar isn't really that new of an idea. Now, we've heard about it for decades. Plus, the dominance of the dollar in global trade is just still overwhelming. The dollar is used in about 84.3% of international transactions. Meanwhile, the Chinese yuan is only used in 4.5%. So it's natural to be skeptical when we hear about talk of a new currency. But here's the real interesting part though, right? So this new currency, let's just call it the BRIC, shall we? This could actually have a real chance of challenging the US dollar. Unlike previous contenders like the digital yuan, the BRIC has the potential to make a significant impact. Now, if the BRICS countries, which include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, exclusively use the BRIC for their international trade, it could help them to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. Now, currently, they rely on agreements to use other currencies, like the yuan, in their trade. But there are limitations to these agreements. So, for example, Russia still needs to use the US dollar to buy its imports from other countries that still use the dollar. But here's the real game changer, guys. If China and Russia exclusively use the BRICS for trade, Russia would no longer need to park its proceeds in dollars, and it could then use the BRIC to buy its imports from other countries. This is what we call de-dollarization, folks. Now, you might wonder if it's realistic to think that the BRICS countries would rely solely on the BRIC for their trade. Well, the answer is yes. In 2022, the BRICS as a group had a trade surplus of $387 billion. Mainly thanks to China's economic strength. Now, this surplus means that they have the capability to pay for their own imports on their own. And unlike other currency unions, the BRICS have a diverse range of goods that they can produce because they're spread across many different regions. Now, this diversity gives them the potential to be more self-sufficient in their trade. Other unions like the Eurozone, they struggle with trade deficits because they lack the geographic diversity of BRICS nations. Now, the BRICS wouldn't even need to limit their trade to just each other. Since each member is an economic heavyweight in its own right, regions worldwide would most likely still be willing to do business even using the BRIC. And so this means trade could continue even if there are restrictions between certain countries. Now let's go ahead and talk about the worst case scenario of consumers in BRICS countries if their developments adopted a brick or bust trade policy. Now, we can look at Russia as an example, right? Now, sure, the US and its allies have been heavy-handed with those Russian sanctions, but what the mainstream media doesn't seem to really want to cover here is that the goods from the United States and Europe still reach the country. Now, sure, there are costs for consumers, but they're not as catastrophic as the government wants us to believe. And as the BRICS countries express their desire to reduce their resilience or their reliance on the dollar, the benefits of de-dollarization will become even more apparent. To replace the dollar as a reserve currency among the BRICS, the BRIC would need safe assets to hold when not being used for trade. And guess what, guys? The BRIC could definitely do that. Now, since the BRICS have a trade surplus, they might not even need foreign money. They can encourage their own households and businesses to invest in BRIC assets. But what makes these assets even more attractive is that they could offer interest payments, and the diversification benefits of gold. Now, this is definitely going to appeal to a lot of investors who are looking for both stability and growth in their financial opportunities. My question for you is, what do you guys think? Now, again, there's also Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's definitely a strong candidate for what the BRICS countries are thinking up. First, using Bitcoin as a reserve currency would help these countries rely less on the US dollar and have more diverse money. Second, Bitcoin's technology can make financial systems faster and smoother, which is very important for these nations to catch up with the big players. Russia is doing something very interesting too. They're creating special groups that will focus on mining cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Elvira Nabiullina, the head of the Bank of Russia, suggested that cryptocurrencies will primarily be used for international settlements, excluding domestic transactions. Basically, they want to use cryptocurrencies mainly for international payments, not within their own country. Now, all of this makes people think that the new global currency that the BRICS alliance wants might be a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And that's why the key word for investors right now is diversity. Diversify, diversify, diversify. People are just diversifying their portfolios by reducing their exposure to the US dollar and looking for alternative investment options. Some are getting cryptocurrencies of other countries, especially those that they expect to benefit from the shift toward the BRICS currency. Commodities are an option too, particularly gold. And as a hedge against currency devaluation, the BRICS currency is expected to be pegged to commodities, including gold. So the demand for precious metals is likely to increase, and that'll definitely drive up their prices. Well, maybe not definitely, but the odds are likely. Now, other investors are just keeping an eye for opportunities in the global financial markets, monitoring market trends, and looking for undervalued assets that could possibly benefit from the changing landscape. And so this means that sectors and industries that are likely to experience growth in the wake of the new currency system. Now, this is not going to all happen overnight, guys, but it definitely pays to keep your ears to the ground. That's why you're a part of the Financial Freedom Fam, right? We got to take care of our own. Just let me know if you guys are interested in another video exploring these financial opportunities on the horizon. We can totally do that in another one. Just make sure you drop your questions and your requests in the comment section down below. I'm going to be waiting for you guys. And as always, I'm always excited to hear from you guys and so that we can plan our future content together. But for now, that was our de-dollarization update and daily news report. 25 countries signing up for the Brics Plus alliance, how viable a BRICS currency could really be, Bitcoin as the potential option, and all the investment moves and strategies that experts are looking into. By the way, for the very best way to invest in gold or silver, check out the links in the description down below of this video. Appreciate you guys watching. Big thanks for always dropping a like for the video. I'm not kidding you guys. Seeing your likes, your comments, your subscribes every single day definitely makes my day. I really appreciate you guys, and I'm gonna see you on the next one.